Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 6th, 2023 Board of Selectmen meeting. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. We meet today under the same governor's extended COVID rules, but there is no one signed up tonight for the Vonage account, so no one online attending the meeting. To start the meeting, if we could please, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Webster firefighter Paul Cloutier, who passed away on February 22nd, responding to an emergency on Webster Lake. He leaves a wife and 2 children, as well as his fellow brothers and sisters on the Webster Fire Department and the Muddy Brook Fire Department. So, Godspeed, firefighter Cloutier. Thank you. First item on the agenda under new business is the request possible vote to approve one-day liquor license application submitted by Robin Jewell for a neighborhood party to be held at the Kildare Island Club on June 17th, 23, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., 191 Kildare Road, Webster, Mass. This is at the actual Kildare Island Club. We do have the information in our, package. I've skipped over the minutes for a minute. We'll go back to that. Any questions on this particular item?
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as how we're all here tonight, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It is a unanimous vote. Jumping back to the regular session meeting minutes from February 13th, 23, again in our package. Any questions, comments, corrections on those? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to vote to open the warrant for the spring.
I'm sorry, this is to approve the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, it's okay.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from prior meeting.
Second.
We have a motion made in a second. Any further discussion? I'm not sure if we were all there, if anyone
We
was.
weren't.
Okay.
Dawn and I weren't.
All right, so if you, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any recusals?
Right here. Abstain too.
2 abstentions, right? It is 3, 0 noes, and 2 recusals or abstentions. Next item, vote to open the warrant for the spring special town meeting on Monday, May 8th, 6:30 p.m., Bartlett High School, 52 Lake Parkway, Webster, with a closing date of Friday, March 31st at noon for submission of articles or citizens' petitions. This, in particular, is the special town meeting, which is at 6:30. Questions? Now I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to open the warrant for the spring special town meeting on Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at Bartlett High School, 52 Lake Parkway, Webster, with a closing date of Friday, March 31st, 2023 at noon for submission of articles or citizen petitions.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's a unanimous vote. Next item, vote to open the warrant for the spring annual town meeting. Monday, May 8th, 7 p.m., Bartlett High School, 52 Lake Parkway, Webster, with a closing date of Friday, March 31st, 23 at noontime for submission of articles or citizens' petitions. This is for the spring annual town meeting.
So moved.
Okay. Motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is a unanimous vote. Next, read and vote to approve the town election warrant for May 1st, 2023. Get to our, this will be on page 13 and 14 of our package. Anyone want to read it, or? I guess I'll just read it. Oh, go ahead. Thank you, Earl.
Town warrant, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Worcester, SS. To either of the constables of the town of Webster and the county aforesaid, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby required and directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Webster aforesaid, who are qualified to vote in elections and town affairs, to meet in the town auditorium, Town Hall, 350 Main Street, precincts 2, 3, 4, and 5, and at the Town Senior Center, 5 Church Street, precincts 1 and 1A, both in said Webster, on Monday, the 1st day of May, 2023, it being the first Monday in May at 7 o'clock in the forenoon, then and there to act on the following articles, to wit: Article 1, to choose by ballot all necessary town officers for the ensuing year, the town selectmen for 3 years, 2 school committee members for 3 years, 1 finance committee member for 3 years, 3 trustees of the public library for 3 years, 1 board of health member for 3 years, 1 redevelopment authority member for 5 years, and 1 housing authority for 5 years. All of the above-named town offices to be voted on one ballot, to be voted for on one ballot. All polls close at 8 o'clock in the evening, and you are directed to serve this warrant by publishing an attested copy thereof in a newspaper published within the town of Webster at least 7 days preceding the meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of holding said meeting. Given under our hands today's date,
March 6th.
March 6th, 2023, in the year 2023.
Okay, and that'll be signed by all the selectmen. Any questions on this?
Board of Selectmen is not on here, should they?
2 selectmen.
2 selectmen, very first line on the far right.
I'm looking at the
The
elected
right
officials.
here. This would be on page 14 of our package. So I think, Tom, what you're noting too is worthwhile of saying. The next page actually shows the job kind of descriptions and what each of these elected officials do. Selectmen's not listed, but it identifies in there what the responsibilities are of school committee members, finance, trustees, the library, Board of Health, Redevelopment Authority, and Housing Authority. So if anyone's interested, they can see this package online to see what those respective
Yeah, that's what I was
jobs
referring
are.
to.
So with that said, I'll entertain a motion again.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the town warrant as read. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is a unanimous vote. Okay, next item, request and possible vote to appoint Jeffrey Chahowski as an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term. We did receive today a note from Kelly that had the approval of Jason Piatter, the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, asking that Mr. Chahowski be appointed as an alternate. We also have on page 17 of our package, starting on 17, his application to us. Is there any questions? Are any questions, or anyone have any other?
I make motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Please say nay. Hearing none, it is a unanimous vote. Next item, discussion on creating a schedule to review selectmen policies. We do have a note in here also. So this is on page 16 of 23. So we have the selectmen policy book. On page 16 of our package here, you'll note at the very bottom, there are actually 3 policies that are listed on there, which we will not be taking up, as those, the responsibility for those is being shifted over, it has been shifted over to the Water Sewer Commission.
Through the chair, I think there's 2 others just above that should be excluded from and included with the Water Sewer Commission. That's the sewer tie-in policy and the process to appeal.
I'm just trying to find them on here. Okay, sorry.
Just
Yep.
above,
They're not highlighted in yellow.
Right.
Those will are also being dealt with.
And those 5 policies were reviewed by the commission in May of 2022.
All right, thank you. So we will be excluding those from our discussion. We're not looking to obviously review them tonight. What makes sense is maybe talk about which ones we want to start reviewing. If we want to review them in bulk, we're behind a little bit on some of them, going back to 22. So I'll just open it up for discussion. You know, if not, we can probably just take the general government policies at our next meeting. If you want, we can take them all.
And just, Courtney and I have gone through a number of these and have some suggestions. So we've kind of just did some of our diligence with regard to these policies. So we'd be prepared to make some recommendations to the board when the time comes.
So what's the pleasure? Do you want to do half of them now at the next meeting and half of them at the meeting after that? To lighten the load a bit? Do you want to take the ones except for the ones, let's say, January 1st of 21 and 22, take care of those? Or do you want to just try and review them all, and we would then get a package from Rick and Courtney with their recommended amendments to them?
I think we should do it all at once, complete all of them this year, and maybe split it into two if that's, we could do the general policies and licensing policies for one meeting, and the regulatory policies and Department of Public Works policies, and there's, or we could do them all at one meeting, whatever. Have you reviewed all of?
Yeah, there's some that we've, made a few more notes about, but we've generally gone through them, again, in bulk. Like I said, when the time comes, be happy to plan on making some recommendations. I would say, overall, I think they're in pretty good shape, and I don't think we'll need much updating.
Yeah, I think when we do review them, we'll put a date, a next review date on there. I thank Kelly and Courtney and Rick for putting this together, and then we'll create a template to make sure that we don't miss any of these in the future.
Based on what you've seen so far, what's your recommendation, that we do them in bulk or split them up?
I like Earl's thought of breaking it up into two separate meetings.
Okay.
So that being said, why don't we plan on doing, because we have 2 more meetings before kind of the fiscal year for the town ends and the elections come up. So why don't we'll suggest just, Earl's suggestion, do the general government and the licensing at our next meeting, which is the tri-board meeting, and then the regulatory and Department of Public Works at the April 10th. Is that good?
Yeah, unless, Dawn, you don't want to miss those second phase, right?
No, I won't miss the second phase.
We'll require a written report from any of those who are not going to be here.
On the second portion of it, you will not be here, though, right?
On the 10th, correct.
On the 10th.
Yep, but I'll put my comments in. And that would be for the 3rd and 4th groupings. Okay, it's a good idea. I don't think we need a vote on that. We'll just plan on putting those on the agendas for the next couple of meetings. Highlight of the meeting, discuss the timing of the town administrator's review, not the actual town administrator's review.
Sure. Can I make a couple of comments, because it's all related? The update I sent you today has some attachments, and if you've had a chance to read my email, as I mentioned, that it shouldn't be that daunting when you realize it's just a copy of the current format that's been used in the last several years, as well as a format that I've used in years past. And my comment to both the chairman and vice chairman fairly recently is that some of those items listed in the current, most recent format here, some of those have items that may not be quite on point, and some of them have points that wouldn't necessarily be observed by the board for various reasons. So, as well as I mentioned, I'm more than happy to go through that process if that's what the board wishes. But I thought it might be helpful to take a look at what I've given to the board. And my suggestion would be maybe in the next week or so, if the chairman and vice chairman and I could get together and maybe finalize what we think is, the best tool, and maybe move forward with that, unless the board wanted to take a formal vote on using a particular format, which...
Yeah, so a little bit of background. This was developed, I think, the year before Doug left, so it was something that had pretty broad support I agree. If we can all turn, if you have the information here, there's, I think, Rick, as you put some question marks on a few of these,
Yes, right.
which may or may not, make sense for us to weigh in on in the actual evaluations that we do individually.
Did you have any comment on the scoring methodology that we use versus the one that you presented?
I didn't have any issues with that, a numerical approach. I do know from what I've told that, I know there was I'm sorry, a 360?
Yeah.
Was that the terminology? So to what extent the board wishes to incorporate that? I mean, I do have, a little bit of my comment on that. It's kind of hard for the board members and others to get a handle on what department heads what issues, concerns, support they might have. I'm not sure how you would do that effectively. I just don't know how you've done it in the past.
Yeah,
so.
I think in the past, we've asked for comments from the department
Yeah,
heads.
okay.
That's all, and we've incorporated those comments, if any,
Okay,
in
so
here,
that's
but,
so that's aside from the actual
correct.
check the boxes, so to speak, so,
Correct.
okay.
That was more of the process. And I think in the past, we've also put a note out to the public, just saying, the town administrator's review is coming up before the board, and if the public had any comment, to please submit them. I think if we resurrect what we had, right, 2 years ago.
Through the chair, I
we'd
think
have that.
when we went out to the community, it was only on section 6. Like, so it wasn't the
Correct.
full review section. It was really just
Citizen
targeted towards this section 6, is I think the survey that was created.
Like the Google Pages or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that, weren't there 2 sections that we didn't fill out at all 2 years ago?
I also thought the supervision section was the one that we used for the 360 from the department heads on.
Yeah,
Because we
I think
wouldn't be
that's the
able to
one that
weigh in
we-
on that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm talking about, that we didn't fill that out at all.
Yeah, I think myself, when I filled it out, I think I did fill it out based on my observations, and it's, it's probably unfair if you're not chair or vice chair. You made it, as chair or vice chair, you probably spend more time with Rick. So, if you do, I would say if we don't have any observations, just put NA there. And NA wouldn't be calculated in the average. But I know that, I can observe things here when we are here, so. And we all do talk to the public at times, I'm sure, saying, oh, Rick's doing a, bang-up job, and we've all seen him at town meeting and having a little fun there.
I'm sure it depends on who you ask.
That's very true.
I think that's true, in the staffing and supervision area, I don't think, if we're not chair or vice chair, I don't think we see as much.
Yeah, so I think if you're not, I would say if we're not comfortable answering any particular point in here, I would just put NA. Just make it easier, because we did, I think, and thanking Lisa from a couple years ago, we had kind of settled on this format, and, maybe the next time the
Sure, and that's
revised
fine. I
board
just
can
wanna-
refresh it.
My main concern was really that, the board isn't put in a position, I don't think it's fair to you or me, to the extent that you're, opining on things you just really don't have an opportunity to see.
No, that's fair.
Because it would certainly make it easier if you maintain the current format, but decide what you have and haven't observed. So,
Yeah, if people are comfortable with that, I mean, that's how I think we can proceed. And for the public, we try to get these in before the election so that we have the folks that have worked with Rick for the past year, just a little over this past year,
yeah.
to provide the commentary and the evaluation. Also, we have, if we all remember, we had set the goals, several months ago, so Rick does not have a full year under his belt of a lot of these, so I'm sure that a number of the specific goals are going to be carried on for a year, some a couple years. So just keep that in mind, I think, when we're looking at this. From a timing standpoint, I was thinking April 10th, our next meeting. I know I won't be here, but I'll submit my evaluation prior to that. And we normally would try to have them in, I think, before, at least a week before, Courtney from last year or 2 years ago, to compile them. And then we can copy them and send them out in the package for the April 10th. Is that?
Yeah, does it make any sense to have Rick take a look at the goals that we did set and let us know where they stand?
Yes, in fact, on my overall, my update, that's actually my last comment, is that I would be, I think I mentioned within 2 weeks, I'd be giving you an overall assessment of where we are with all those goals.
Yeah, that's the last item you have in your
Sure.
administrator report. Okay, so April 10th, we'll set the date, and April 3rd, make sure our comments, our evaluations are in by April 3rd, or Courtney and Kelly will chase you down, Kelly especially. And then we'll have it we'll put it on the agenda for the April 10th meeting.
That'll be in a digital format? Wasn't it a digital format before?
Yeah, I think you can fill it out digitally, or you can put it, you can fill it out manually and hand it in, whatever.
Won't be able to read my writing digitally.
All right, anything further on the upcoming town administrator review? All right, that leads us on to Rick's report. He's got it here, and I think everyone's got a copy of it.
Number one is you just dealt with, fortunately, and that's half of a page. So, a number of personnel activities. I think I previously reported that our wage classification project is over. The implementation is complete. There were adjustments that needed to be made for the current year's budget, FY 2023, and those accommodations or adjustments are now part of the FY 2024 budget. So the timing was good, and all those recommendations have been incorporated. I believe there was I think it was about $70,000 that the town had formally put aside for those adjustments. I think we expended about half of that in FY 2023. And collective bargaining, we have a police, clerical / library and public works groups. We really just started those a couple of weeks ago. So there's nothing tangible to report. We are both for the any non-union raises as well as collective bargaining. We have made an accommodation in our FY 2024 budget for any increases. Obviously, we have to keep those within the funds we have available, and we're not particularly forthcoming as to exactly how much that is, obviously, but those are underway, and we think we're in pretty good shape for hopefully concluding those before town meeting. Human resources audit, that is underway. Courtney's been continues to be in contact with our friends at the Collins Center in terms of policy analysis and timing and et cetera. It's in her hands, unless I'm specifically asked questions. I'm kind of leaving it up to her to facilitate that. She hasn't complained yet, not just yet.
Well, she'd have to complain to herself.
Well, yeah, exactly, because that's when my door closes every once in a while, so. The next, following one, I think you can just read that. I don't think it's necessary to expound upon that. Our Board of Health vacancy, this was brought up at the last meeting, that there was a vacancy from the resignation of Ms. Miller. And the board consists of 5 members, including 3 elected, 2 appointed. Hers is one of the elected positions. The chair of the Board of Health had asked me before the previous selectmen's meeting if the board would consider appointing somebody prior to the election. Unfortunately, there aren't any applicants for that appointment. If that were to occur, it would require a joint vote of the remaining members of the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen. I don't know if you've had that happen before, where you had to fill a vacancy on an elected board.
We have, but not for the Board of Health.
Okay. Well, in light of the fact that we don't have an applicant, and the Board of Health Chair, Ms. Stoika, has informed me that, to the best of her knowledge, there aren't any issues that they're expecting that would require that vote before the election. It makes sense to wait until that time. In the meantime, I don't know that there's anybody who's actually pulled papers for that position on the Board of Health. So hopefully that will be the case, and the board won't be doing this after the election anyway, so.
And I think there's still another week to pull
Yes.
papers. So
Yes, there is, so.
if anybody's interested.
And again, that description is, you know, provided, one in the charter and also in our package here. It's a very important board.
And that'll bring me back to, at the end, something that's not on here. A budget process, the deadline for submitting requests to the Finance Committee was February 28th. We did that. In fact, this year, we actually submitted the request as well as a recommended budget proposal to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee meets tomorrow night. Whether or not there'll be comments on that, I'm not sure, seeing where they just got the package. It is not specifically on their agenda to make considerations on that. March 14th is the public hearing the Finance Committee has to discuss the budget. So, happy to say that that is behind us to some extent. Salary adjustments have also been incorporated, step increases, all salary adjustments are required by our wage and classification plan. School department administration is satisfied with the outcome of this process to date. Now, obviously, a significant increase in Chapter 78 of approximately $2 million is quite helpful. But with that comes, you know, obligations. The school financing formula is based upon such things as per capita income and as well as other specific needs of the town, special education, transportation. So towns like Webster benefit more, but there's a reason. There's needs that need to be dealt with, and the state expects them to be dealt with. So even though there is an influx of state aid, which we're happy to have, keep in mind those obligations come with that, but that has made it fairly, easy is not the right word, but an easier year to reach our budget goals in a more timely fashion. Capital plan is compiled, but we still have to finish it up in terms of, you know, making specific priorities. You know, it's all there. And that's something that over the next couple of weeks we'll be doing internally, me and finance director and the assistant town administrator. One of the reasons this process went so well, our finance director, Tim Bell, really did a really great job. Very diligent, and pretty much do anything analysis I would ask of him, and generally he had already done an analysis before he knew I was going to ask for it. And Courtney's, I say, institutional memory and knowledge of some of the previous conversations and dynamics that have happened over her tenure. We're also very happy in helping me make a recommendation. So we're in pretty
Rick,
good shape.
just a quick question on that. This would also incorporate all of the, remember, well, I think it was probably the late summer, fall of last year, we had to make sure we did an analysis of all components of buildings, heating, so we were going to do the inventory, so that includes
Yes.
that inventory in here as well, I assume.
Well, the inventory will not be complete at this time.
Okay.
We do have a proposal from, and we've actually done some homework, we've actually seen demonstration by a particular company who does these analysis. It's not something that's, you know, overly prevalent in cities and towns. But our consulting engineer, Chuck Eaton, I think most people, his firm has some, can provide some assistance, and they have part of their architectural branch of their company that does these types of things for other not-for-profit institutions. We've looked over what they have to offer. We probably don't need everything that they can offer, so ultimately we'll be probably scaling back a proposed scope, and we do intend to include the cost of that in our capital plan or as a separate article at town meeting.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just remember going back with the school and all the components, we had that
Yes.
discussion.
Right.
And we don't have a facilities manager for the town like a larger company
Sure.
may have, who may have that information at his or her fingertips. So
And-
that's great if they
And when Monique
offer that.
sat through our demonstration with us to take a look at the product, and once again, we've got to determine how, what they have available is more than we need. but there are certainly some significant elements that would be very, very helpful for us. And we did have some conversations, on that same topic with Monique regarding whether or not this would be a year we should be pursuing a facilities director. Decided that the timing wasn't right. First of all, it would be good to get a product like this in front of us, and because of the turnover in the school administration, it would probably be best to let the dust settle for a new administration to help make those decisions.
Good idea. Thank you.
Cable Advisory Committee update. We did have a survey that we received about 130 responses. It was on our website for approximately 3 weeks, and our IT Director, Greg Robert, compiled the results, and the CAC will begin its analysis at our next meeting on Wednesday, March 8th. To what extent and how deep an analysis the committee wishes to engage in is to be determined. Also, we will be having our town council, Mr. Bill Hewig, joining us remotely to discuss how we can proceed or should proceed in our effort to get response from Spectrum to forward our negotiations. To date, we've been frustrated by the response, or actually complete lack of response from Spectrum to some very basic questions. Those questions are critical, though, in us being able to negotiate or pursue contractual negotiations. We don't think what we've been asking is the least bit difficult. We have every reason to believe that these are probably easy answers that we should be able to get from Spectrum. Ultimately, if it comes down to our council having to go through the legal arm of Spectrum to get us answers, that's what we'll do. So hopefully we can strategize with Attorney Hewig on Wednesday to try to get a plan together. I do know one of the weaknesses is that Spectrum has very few people trying to service a lot of towns. But once again, it's really the lack of any response at all, which has been particularly frustrating.
And Rick, if it helps, certainly I can sign a letter to whomever as chair of the board, expressing that frustration.
Tom, do you have anything else you
I
think
think
has
that,
summed it up? Okay.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Our veterans agent recruitment, as mentioned last meeting, our veterans agent, Paul Brodeur, is retiring the end of March. And our part-time agent or assistant consultant, whatever he's been called over the years, but Mr. Rich Howler
Former full-time agent.
that's
yeah.
right, has agreed to assume the position on interim basis, which we're very happy with. Obviously, it kind of gives us a little breathing room in terms of moving forward with the recruitment. Haven't done it yet, but I will be contacting and having conversation with our veterans organizations to get their assistance and input and moving forward with the recruitment process. That may include a region, that may include, again, we're just replacing what we have, but I think it's important to get the input from the constituency as we move forward.
And we did mention at our last meeting our thanks to Paul Brodeur for all he's done, and certainly now thanks to Rich Haleva for stepping up in the interim. So
Yes.
Thank you to Rich.
Our DLTA, I'm not sure if people are familiar with the DLTA, District Local Technical Assistance Program. These are efforts, state-funded efforts by our local regional planning agencies. This is a program that's been going on for many years. The state provides some funding for the RPAs to do provide some technical assistance to towns within each region. Those projects can only be so in-depth, obviously, because of the funding available. What we have requested, after conversation internally with town planner, redevelopment director, and of course our director of our chairman of our EDC, is we've asked for verbally, there will be to come an application process that they will help us with a study effort to study our, a BID, a bid, so-called business and industrial Thank you, Business Improvement District. That is something we really haven't had a chance to deal with too much in terms of pursuing our goals, so this could be a good way to review the information that has been collected in the past, and to what extent what they'll be able to deal with, or what depth they'll be able to get into with discussing this with community and business leaders. We just don't know that yet. So it may be minimal, it may be significant, but I would tend to think it would be more on a minimal side, and that's not a criticism, but there's only so much available time by the regional planning agency. But hopefully that will be something that will kind of kickstart that effort in the reasonably near future.
Rick, has there been any information, I know it's early in the Healy administration, but the Baker-Polito administration had, various grant opportunities. Have there been any discussions yet or information yet that if the Healy administration might continue some of those, community development type grants? Haven't heard anything?
It has not been discussed yet. There's been no information that's been forthcoming from Mass Municipal Association. Right now, the focus has been on local aid, Chapter 78, and Chapter 90 program. So that's prominently what's been we've been updated on. And we expect some pretty good news on a Chapter 90 program, too. I believe it might even be as early as this week, where the legislature should be acting on the governor's proposal, which should be more beneficial to Webster than where we've seen in the last few years. So that's that update is to follow. Hopefully it will be good news, and hopefully it'll be soon. Again, without getting into detail, as I mentioned, we are pursuing our enforcement of some zoning and other issues with the 44 Bartlett and the family campground. Those have been fairly important, significant issues internally that, and I think those have been, because of turnover, et cetera, it's just been hard to stay on top of these and pursue them, but these are important, and I just want the board to know that these are things from top down, we are working on. And as I mentioned earlier, that within 2 weeks, I plan to give the board an update on the goals approved by the board at a previous meeting. I intend to use the format that has been put together. I think Lisa did it a couple of years ago, a spreadsheet format, which is easy for me and others to keep track of the goals one at a time. Whether or not that's going to be an effective way to convey it to the Board of Selectmen, I think that's a conversation Randy and Earl and I will have before that time. So, and two last things, very brief, and then probably within maybe even within a week, we got an email today regarding the progress on the 395 interchange rotary project. So I think the chairman also got notification, may have been after you were able to check your email. So whether or not there's something significant there to report in the interim, we'll certainly let you know. And there's also been participating, we had a first meeting of a housing alliance, and it was actually very interesting in terms of looking at and trying to get a handle on the communities in the area as to the extent of the homeless problem. And the next meeting is on the end of next week, Friday, and it's actually here in the Webster Police Department. If anybody wishes to go, we can get more information. I was brought into it by a state rep, Joe McKenna. I was very, very happy that I was. It was a very learning experience. So I'm hoping that others, and I know chairman of our library trustees has expressed an interest to be involved. Some of the same issues come up during the opioid committee, the opioid study committee.
The task force.
Task force.
Yep.
And the last time I was there, so there may be other representatives of Webster from that task force that may be interested in attending. So again, it's a newer project, something I've recently been brought into, and to the extent that can get other town officials involved will be helpful. The various towns that are included in this, and I can't rattle them off. There really weren't any town officials. They were more of the service groups, alliances, service groups, So I
Like
was
a Board of Health, or as we have.
Not even that.
Right, and
Community
again, very,
person.
very prominent organizations, but there weren't specific town officials, and I think that's what, I thank Joe McKenna for reaching out to me with regard to that. So that's, I think, gonna be an important effort that's kind of just getting off the ground right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Tom, as, I think you chair the Friends of the Library still, Tom?
No.
But-
Yeah.
So, I
Well-
mean, that, if you're gonna, even as a selectman, it's more important if you're able to go. I know I won't be able to go,
Yeah,
but
I'll get you the information on
Many of us can
that.
go.
Yeah, I'd like some information about.
Sure, and
about the
again, the
meeting.
fact that it's local, the first meeting was in Southbridge, so I was nice enough to offer our facility here.
Great.
I was, eventually checked with the chief to see if it was available. But during the day, obviously, as you know, it's a wonderful facility that's available to, the community, so those are just kind of getting out of the blocks, that last one, so we'll keep you informed, and like I said, to the extent that more town officials are able to get involved, I think it would certainly be helpful. For me, it was interesting to start to understand some of those things I haven't really given a lot of thought to over the years, so. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Rick. Any questions on any of the items that Rick brought up?
Do you have the time of that meeting on the 17th?
I do. Let me check my BlackBerry.
Because that has been, as you know, a major concern over at the library.
Yes, I know, that's why the chair of the trustees is particularly interested in getting involved. That's 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock?
On Friday, the 17th?
Yes.
Okay, I'll mark it down as well.
Not too bad, huh? Not too bad.
Any further questions for Rick on his town administrator report? Hearing none.
Make a motion to accept the town administrator's report.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it's a unanimous vote. Thank you, Rick. Boards and committee vacancies, again, here we list them all, and to the extent that, I know we've asked in the past, anyone in the public that views the meeting, if there's any interest, please contact Rick, Courtney, any of us, any of the chairs of the various committees. It's getting more and more difficult to get volunteers to volunteer. But, these are all areas in our town that could certainly use some additional help and additional thought.
I almost hesitate to bring this up, but I know when I forget, just recently, I know the chairman and I think maybe the vice chairman too, about having a form of description, call it a position description, so to speak, for what, these boards and committees do. So if somebody is interested in volunteering, they'll know exactly what that board does. And an example would be somebody who thinks they're interested in the zoning board of appeals would not necessarily know what that board really does. They don't do zoning. So just an example, and I'm not suggesting that's going to happen soon, but that's probably something I think would be helpful if we start working on here at some point.
Yeah, and I do think that as part of our prep meeting, we also talked about having that available for the town election, so that we can have people, give it to people who come and vote, so to gain some interest that way. I thought that was a great idea, and to that extent, we have to remember that the ballot is for positions that are elected. What's here are positions that are appointed as well, so, and that's it would be great to have those descriptions and have a handout on May 1st. We can garner some more interest, so, and again, just if we can spread the word as much as we can, that will be great. Before we close out, I see Mr. Avalos is here. Ted, did you want to, we had talked previously on the town election, the warrant and stuff. Did you have anything on that as moderator, anything you wanted to bring up? Okay, great. Anything else? Okay, proposed future meeting dates, we've got March 20th, that's the tri-board meeting with Finance and School Committee. So that's being held, I believe, here, Kelly or Courtney? That's being held,
Through the chair. I may not be back on time. I have a flight that day,
oh, okay.
so I don't know if I'll
time
be
is
back
the
in
meeting?
time.
March, so the March 20th would normally be at 6 PM? Oh, sure. So that would be at 6 o'clock. I believe we would still have a quorum just in case you
Yeah, I
didn't
don't know if I'll be back in
make it back
time.
in time.
That's for the March meeting?
March 20th. So that would be, if we can confirm that, please, with the Finance and School Committee, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
And then we have the April 10th regular Board of Selectmen meeting, 6 PM on April 10th. There's a note there about future events. I'm not sure if our town administrator is going to dress up as the Easter Bunny or not, but that's March 25th.
It's highly unlikely.
And then also April 22nd, which is Earth Day, and that's a busy day, and we thank the police department. They take good care with the trailer and whatnot, and to gather all of the bags that are collected for trash day and the cleanup around town. So before we adjourn, we do have we were just talking about the boards and committee vacancies, and Ted, come on up for that one, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I apologize for being late. I'm trying to
Okay, you caught us just in time.
get here for the discussion on vacancies. The reason I asked to come is because I'm just a little concerned about the vacancies and right now how they're handled, how they're addressed, how they're posted. You know, there are just things that I'm noticing in here that I think we should probably all, as a group, where, you know, the selectmen have the majority of the appointees, but the moderator has several as well, that we try to establish, I think, some responsibilities with this. I've been looking at the webpage. I noticed some of the committees are outdated. I look at some of the listings, the Finance Committee, there's only 7 positions listed, I believe, on the website. There's 9. I don't know if they're vacant, you know, if the other 2 are filled, are they vacant? And I think if I'm confused, then obviously I think our residents are as well, especially those who might be interested in participating. So
And I think the difference between the number in the charter and the people listed would be on our agenda, the vacancies that, in fact, I think it was you who suggested, and we have that on our agenda every,
yes,
every meeting.
and the reason being, of course, is to help promote,
right.
you know, our vacancies and hopefully get some responsible citizens to reply.
And Ted, I'm not sure if you heard, it may have been just before you came in, that for the May election, and probably do this as well for the town meeting, we plan on having the listing of vacancies as well as descriptions of each of the responsibilities of the committee membership, and have that as a handout available to all the folks that come in and vote, as well as for the town meeting, to help promote.
Sure.
You know, the
Well, I
openings.
know, I think the responsibility lies with all of us, and I know as the board, who are appointers, myself, who appoints as town moderator, I also think that the chairs of each of the committee, I would hope it be their responsibility to keep, you know, their listings, their postings up to date. But I guess the question would be, who's responsible for reporting that, and then who gathers the information to make sure that it's correct?
Accurate.
And that could also mean things like, you know, the dates when your term expires, because if you're filling a vacancy in the middle of a term, you obviously only want to fill it for the remainder of that term, but I think things kind of get lost through all of the transition. So I guess I'm just kind of looking for some direction from the board, from the town administrator, as to how we can tighten that up a little bit. So if the chairman of a committee, you know, wants to report a vacancy or is questioning a vacancy, who exactly would they go to for that?
I don't have an answer for that just at the moment, but it was only a couple hours ago I was speaking to our IT director about that exact question. Probably some things I could bring up, but maybe it's not appropriate at the moment, but,
You know, and-
so it is something that we know that we've got to explore.
Yep.
And to help us keep our website as updated as possible.
And I think, Ted, to your point about the chair, I think, at the risk of creating another policy, it probably makes sense to have, call it a policy, but some form of written direction in the form of a policy to charge the chairs with directing their openings to an individual or a position, whether it be the town administrator, assistant town administrator, the secretary for the board of selectmen. But I think maybe what we can do is talk a little bit, chair and vice chair with Rick, to come up with this direction/policy. I think it's a great idea. I really appreciate you bringing it, because although we mention it every meeting, not everyone is obviously listening to.
No, and it's not fair to IT or anyone also if they're not being, provided with the correct information. But, I think it comes down to the responsibility, who is responsible for forwarding that information to IT? Because I don't think we want multiple people converging on our IT department to,
We have,
make changes.
some that do a very good job, departments, boards, and committees that are essentially staffed by our inspection planning department. Those tend to be up to date.
Yeah, you're planning
reasonably up to
ZBA,
date.
Concom.
Right, because there's staff. So when you have so many boards and committees, as you know, that really don't have dedicated staff, then it gets difficult. That's
Water
when things-
sewer is probably up to date,
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are kind of your
Yeah.
more major
Right.
boards.
Correct,
That's when things start to fall
Sure.
through the cracks. So.
sure.
But,
Well,
thank you.
That was it, Mr. Chairman. I just want to try to see if we can't, just tighten it up a little bit, and hopefully get some, responsible people who will be willing to step forward and contribute their time. It gets a little frustrating, I know, particularly for the chairs, I'm sure, of the committees who are dealing. I know the bylaw committee right now is down to 2 members, and one expired, and I'm trying to, get that reestablished. But realistically, the bylaw committee of 5 is down to 1 right now. So
hard
these
to-
are things that we really need to address and work on.
And I think too, if we have this listing available for the annual election, we'll have it for the town meeting, and we know you'll be on the bully pulpit,
Absolutely.
with that in hand.
Okay.
As well, so that's great.
Okay.
Any questions from the board for Ted?
Yeah, thanks for
Appreciate you
taking the
bringing it up.
time, and I apologize for being late on it.
No problem. Got it in. Okay, any other matters to come before the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye, and I'll have Lisa say aye if she could, in the back.
Aye.
Just a motion to adjourn? Okay. Any opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous